Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the live press conference reaction. Erik ten Hag. Oh, Jesus Christ. It's because you said about Erik ten Hag before we went live about the quote. Not Erik ten Hag. Apologies, Eric. I see somewhere in Netherlands weeping. Ruben Amorim. Ruben Amorim is our manager, not Erik ten Hag. He's doing it. I mean, it would be a shock if ten Hag was doing a press conference live at Carrington, wouldn't it? It really, really would. But it's not. It's Ruben Amorim and it's Bruno Fernandes, and we have some quotes coming in. So we'll get into those. But the first bit of breaking news coming out of the presser straight away, Shreyas, is that Amorim has confirmed that Harry Maguire is not available, but apparently Lisandro Martinez is, which I find bizarre because I thought it was a spinal injury that he was going to be out for 2 to 3 weeks. So could you actually see him starting in this game potentially?
You could see him starting in this game because physicality-wise, this isn't a game where I would be as worried. When it comes to, players being brought back after an injury, I think it will be a much better game for him to actually gain some match sharpness and get some minutes in. And I think, for the games that are about to come in the Premier League as well, you would want, an absolutely fit and absolutely sharp Lisandro Martinez to be present there. So I think it is this a decent game for him to actually start, get some minutes in, build some confidence, and hopefully, we start seeing shades of the old Lisandro Martinez that we've been seeing, in the past seasons.
It seems like they're being a little bit careful with Lenny Yoro as well. Apparently he's training, but for fitness. Amorim's saying we believe in him a lot, and we are preparing the best way to start with Lenny, which was a surprise to some people because a lot of people thought during the international break he's good and ready to go for the Ipswich game. Now the Ipswich game has come and gone. Now it's the Bodo Glint. You think, okay, now this is a chance to potentially introduce him. And they're still being very, very cautious. But I know fans would be eager to see him. But is that the better decision just for the benefit long term? Of course.
It is. It's definite atmosphere as well. And I'm sure that whenever he's good to go, whenever he's ready to go, I'm sure Amorim will actually, straight away actually put him into the team because he'd be perfect. In that back three, he'll genuinely be perfect. And I think even Amorim knows that. That's why he's being extra cautious with him because he would want him to be there for, a good long term till the end of the season rather than, having to worry about him being out, playing 2 to 3 games, then being out for 5, then back for 2 to 3 games. Much better to be cautious, much better to be safer because you don't want to, especially with youngsters, you don't want to rush them back from injury. And then, sometimes becomes something, which drags on throughout their career. So you need to be really, really, protective about these youngsters.
Yeah, I think if anything, that tells you how much he's in Amorim's plans, in terms of the longevity with the player. So I'm not too fussed about Russia, especially for this game. With all due respect to Bodo Glint, you don't have to play him in here. You've got options there. Who they'll be, I'm not entirely sure, but he's spoken about his first game at Old Trafford. He said, everyone has said to me that it's going to be special. I just want to win the game. Obviously, after getting the draw against Ipswich, which was a little bit disappointing. On Bodo Glint, he said they run a lot, and that is a very good thing for us in this moment. It feels like it's one of those games where it's going to get it's more getting used to the system again in it. I could see teething issues again. I could see certain cobwebs creeping in. Do you think it could potentially be a bit of a slow start with this?
It might be. And I think a lot of that also depends on, what type of 11 he chooses to go for. I'm sure that we'll still be able to pull off with a victory, but how the game will proceed and, how much of Amorim's tactics will we actually be able to see in play. I think there is still going to be a good time period for it because players are still getting, acclimatized to the new system, the new formation. And with the new formation, I think players also need to, adapt to the way they've been playing for the past 2.5 seasons because this is completely fresh. This is completely different. And I think certain players will be much quicker in that adaptation process, but certain youngsters in the team, like you can mention the likes of Garnacho, even Ahmad in that way as well, they need to redefine their entire positioning, the way they actually attack the box and move around the box. So it will take some time, but when it does happen, we'll be seeing a much, fluid way of actually playing football.
Well, speaking of fluid and transition, Amorim's quite literally just said something on this. He got asked how long it'll take players to adapt. He said it's hard to compare things. This is a different league. It's harder than in Portugal, but I also have more experienced players. They just have to increase confidence.
Exactly.
That was one of the biggest red flags on Sunday, wasn't it? It was certain individual players. You're looking at them, like you can see in the kind of tone and where to do. I go like Casemiro
There
was
was
prime
confusion.
example.
Yeah.
Do I press forward? Do I stay here and sit? Dalot obviously sometimes has those natural habits where he inverts with Ten Hag, and it's like no, you need to stay out wide. Whereas you have the chameleon in Mazraoui, where you could put him in any situation. I mean, the pitch could quite literally be on fire, and he would dance around the flames.
Yeah.
That's how fucking good he is. So yeah, I think there will be an adaptation period, but regardless, you'd expect him to beat Bodo Glint. Ruben Amorim just got asked about Ed Sheeran's apology because he gate crashed the interview, which everyone's seen, and he says you sometimes overcomplicate things. It was nothing. It was nothing special. I was with Roy Keane. He is the real star. That's his answer to. So even in that, like just the bits of charisma, you wouldn't see Eric Ten Hag give an answer like that, would you? That's the difference.
No, he'll say trophies.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What do you think about Ed Sheeran gate crashing? Trophies, clear,
Trophy.
huh? Trophies. He says, when I talk about our structure, you don't know it very well. We can play in different formations. We have to play in different systems because nowadays teams change their dynamic. The power of structure means you can change formation, which is, I think it's a very interesting quote. Everyone's so fixated on this 3-4-3. But that's not, and we also spoke about the actual individual players in there. There's so much room for rotation, isn't there?
Yeah, there definitely is. And, this 3-4-3 can morph a lot. It can become a 4-4-2, while you're off the ball. It can easily become a, 3-4-3 where not just the 10s, but to increase the width of the pitch, they actually functions as traditional wingers as well.
Mm-hmm.
The wing backs can actually occupy the half spaces. And when in certain scenarios, it can also, you can actually play like a 3-5-2 or a 4-2-3-1 at times as well in mid-game as well, because it is a very fluid formation. And when you've got players, I would genuinely say like Mazraoui, who can function in multiple departments, Bruno can function in multiple departments. When Mount is brought back into the frame, Mount can function in a lot of departments as well. So there is a lot of room, when you think about it in a versatility way. It will be a much harder job for teams to actually predict how United will actually, be playing through transitions, playing through the attacking lines, because there is a lot of room for change. And with the kind of profiles that Amorim has got at his disposal right now, I think this unpredictability is something that works in our favor, because till the time, at least, players are getting acclimatized to the system.
Mm-hmm.
At least we have this one positive going into games, that people don't actually know how we'll be, proceeding into the games.
Bruno Fernandes is an interesting one, isn't it? He's obviously alongside him in the presser, and he's being asked about the kind of the switch mid-season and how he's adapting. And he's saying, obviously, if you change your manager mid-season, it's because things are not going as you want. And if things are not going as you want, everyone has to take blame. But now our focus is on what the future can bring. You always have to adapt to different ideas of playing on and off the ball. It's not difficult for me to adapt. I try and pick up things from different positions. Now, a lot of the stuff I've seen online, there's a few people saying they see Bruno being phased out of this system in the next kind of couple of years. What's your take on that?
I don't think so, genuinely, because when you look at the way Bruno Fernandes functions on the pitch, I'm sure he can easily play till the age of 34. With the way he plays, with this intelligence, and with the way he positions himself, in that midfield, it is much easier for him to maintain that longevity. Apart from that, I think sometimes people over criticize him a lot as well. I'm not going to say that he's been absolutely tearing it up for us this season, but sometimes he does become someone who gets easily criticized in this team. And when you look at quality wise, and when you look at when everyone is performing at their best levels, who is our best player on the pitch, it's easily Bruno Fernandes by a landslide. When you can have Marcus Rashford performing at his, I would say, absolute top level again, but still Bruno Fernandes tops him. So I think for us, I would still say, if Amorim has it in his mind that he wants to build this team around Bruno Fernandes, he can actually do that, because he's not some sort of a figure, I would say, just for him to function, you have to get other players into the team, and just to facilitate him, other players have to face the brunt for it. It's never been that case. Whenever Bruno has been playing well, players around him have been playing much better as well. So I'm sure that once Bruno actually is able to get that hesitation out of his mind when he's functioning around the box, which I saw a lot during the game against Ipswich. I think against Ipswich he actually defaulted back to playing as an 8 as well, because Casemiro and Eriksen were having a hard time tracking Omari Hutchinson. So I think once this formation gets solidified, and once Bruno occupies those half spaces a lot, with whether it's Rashford, whether it's Xerxes or Højlund, I think we'll see a much more organized attack from United.
I think the argument on the flip side of things as well is that he is supplying chances at times, but then they're just not burying them when it gets to the final moment. So that's been a huge issue, which Amorim spoke about as well, saying that on the lack of goal threat, saying there's a concern in that, but we have to improve as a team. We controlled possession, but we're not dangerous. We will try to improve as a team. We need to improve as a team. We can score more goals. So asking for a kind of collective effort there. But I also feel like someone that needs to stand up and takes the mantle and start scoring goals, like Erasmus or Rashford. But I don't know about you. I don't have any faith in any of these players stepping up to the bench this season. Genuinely.
I think the only one I'm hopeful about, I will say, is Højlund, because the only one in that number 9 position from the players that we've got at the moment, he's the only one who's been able to score on a consistent basis last season. I mean, he got like 16 goals last season for us across all competitions, which I would say, considering he never had the ball on him for more majority of the season, it is a good feat. And going into this season, I think players around him not actually playing that well hasn't really helped him out either. And there have been games where he's been doing really well. I remember the game against Leicester as well, where his hold-up play was quite good, and he was able to play other wingers in as well. So there have been glimpses of it this season, but I think we just need to actually, get him on the ball a lot more when he's in and around the box, rather than trying to find him on the halfway line, asking him to hold up the ball and waiting for Garnacho to make the run or Rashford to make the run. If you want to get the best out of him, you need to supply him the ball when he's around the box. Around the halfway line, it doesn't matter whether it's Garnacho or Rashford or Højlund. You're not going to get the best out of these attackers in that department. If you want to get the best out of him, track his run. Whenever he's on his run, and he makes a lot of good runs, if you are able to find him, that's when you'll get the best out of him.
You mentioned Marcus Rashford there. Obviously scored on Sunday the only goal after like a minute, and everyone was like on cloud 9 and rainbows, unicorns, and oh my God, we're back. There's a new manager, which quickly fizzled out after about 20 minutes. And you went, oh, we're going back to old things, and we're not operating very well off the ball, and his players not covering ground, etc. But Marcus Rashford starting as a striker, I think potentially surprised at least 20-30% of the fan base. I would say there's certain people suggesting he may go there. And Ruben's just been speaking about this as well. He says, I'll try to help him. That position's not the best one for him. He was fighting with 2 giants against Ipswich. We have to find the best solution for him. He has to be Marcus to return to that moment. He has to be the first one to want it. I never personally rated Marcus Rashford as a striker. I don't like him there. I think he's at times too selfish in his play. There was a lot of times where he could have made runs for people who were on the ball, like Dalot and Bruno, and he just doesn't make the effort to drop in or make the run in behind. But equally, at sometimes as well, it maybe doesn't get found when he does make the run in behind, which I've also seen. I don't see him as a striker. But then you're like, well, if he isn't a striker, where does he fit into the system? Can he be one of those inside kind of forwards, attackers?
No.
Will that work?
He can't. Because to play in that inside forward position, you need to be someone who has the dynamism of actually being creative as well as direct. You cannot be an out and out goal scoring 10 in that system and be playing in that sort of a way where if you're not scoring, you're absolutely ineffective. You need to be someone who, even if you're not getting on the score sheet or assisting, you're able to be effective when it comes to build up play. You're effective when it comes to off the ball movement and pressing. And these are the kind of departments where players like Bruno excel, players like Mason Mount excel a lot when it comes to their off-the-ball tracking and movement, but Rashford doesn't. And that's why when you look at those wing-back departments, whether you look at that number 10 positions or even the striker, there are big question marks and big red marks all over Marcus Rashford. Because I can still see players like Garnacho being played out as a wing-back, because they do have that sort of, hard work in them and intensity to actually, track behind, mark their runners, and be able to maintain the width of the pitch as well. But Rashford doesn't have that in his locker. So unless he completely redefines the way he plays, I don't really see a space for him in this team. And as an inside 10, it's going to be very hard to accommodate him, especially when you've got players like Rasmus. In that 3-4-2-1 or 3-4-3, whatever you want to call it, the striker is your main outlet. If your striker is not getting the ball when he's making those runs into the box, it's not as effective.
I mean, for Marcus now, he's played under Louis van Gaal, he's played under Jose Mourinho, he's played under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, played under Carrick for a little bit, played under Ralph Ragnick, played under Erik ten Hag, played under Ruud van Nistelrooy, and now played under Ruben Amorim. Whether he has his moments where, obviously that season where he scored 30 goals, or the one under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, for example, where he did quite well at 17 to 20, I believe.
Yeah.
Is it... I just don't see any form of sustainability in it ever. I see like moments
There's
where
no
people,
consistency in there.
you grab onto something, but then when you do, it's like, oh, the branch snaps, and it's like you got to climb up the tree again. And I'm almost like just tired of doing that with Marcus. I hope he does well. I hope he turns into an elite forward again. But when we talk about talisman, like the Sakas and Salas, and he's not even close to that level.
Yeah.
Not even
He's
close.
He's not someone who you can look at and go, he's getting 25 goals this season. He's not. He genuinely isn't. And other teams do have that. City have got Haaland. Like you mentioned, Saka is there present at Arsenal. You've got Cole Palmer at Chelsea. You've got Mo Salah, and you could even put Luis Diaz into the fray at Liverpool as well with the way they've been scoring. So you need that sort of figure in that attacking lineup who you can look at and go that, even if you're having a hard patch of games, you're not playing that well, these guys can come out on top and actually get you the 3 points. And right now, when the games are going bad, Rashford looks even worse. When the games are going good, at least Rashford is someone who's been tolerable. But it just isn't fitting right with him at the moment.
I get really frustrated with his performances at times because obviously the ability is there. I don't think anyone on the planet doubts his talent and his ability when he's on it. No one at all. It's the consistency is a massive issue for me, and he can't seem to grind it out, and he just looks uninterested. Can't do it for a full 90 minutes. We'll have a great 10-20 minutes, and that is a sign to me of just a player who just isn't fully on it, or at least he might be committed in terms of everything he's doing physically, but mentally, he can't deal with it at Man United, and I think he needs a different environment, a different.
He needs a change of scenery. System. I think he definitely needs it, whether it's out of the, in some other side abroad. But I think moving forward into next season, you need to get a fresh new face in who can actually lead this attacking line in the longer run. Someone you can look at and go, he's getting double digits, whether it's in assists or whether it's in goals, and actually be effective. So if the cost of that is Marcus Rashford, I think it is time, because he's been given enough time. After that 30-goal season, that last season was his credit in the bank. If he is not able to do it now, I think that's it.
What's interesting is just another quote coming in on the attacking situation and goal scoring, because obviously it's not just Rashford who isn't scoring. There's other players around him who aren't performing very well. And he spoke about Xerxes and Højlund. He said Højlund and Xerxes will score more goals. And listen to this. Ahmad has to be better near the goal, and Bruno as well has to score more goals, is what he's saying. Now, it's weird because sometimes when you'd hear Erik ten Hag speak about play, he'd be very protective of you, Rashfords and Brunos. He wouldn't really criticise them or offer like bits of advice, especially in like a press conference. Now you're seeing stuff. Are you there, Shreyas? Where's he gone? Are you there? Hello. Shreyas? I think... Am I lagging? Oh my god, what's going on here? I don't know what's happened here. Hello. Discord's going a bit mad. Am I still live? Let me know in the chat, people. Are we laggy? Are we moving? What's going on here?
Hello?
Good. Hello.
Yeah, now
is it me or is it you?
I don't know, because you froze on my screen. Now you're moving.
You froze on mine, so I don't know. I don't know. Technical issues. Something's gone on there. Anyway, what was he speaking about? The other players, right? Rasmus Højlund, Xerxes. Yeah, so Amorim on Rashford and Xerxes, he was saying Højlund and Xerxes will score more goals, but he also said Ahmad has to be better near the goal, and Bruno as well has to score more goals, which is interesting because Erik ten Hag never used to criticise them or offer bits of advice to those players specifically. Bruno has to score more goals, Ahmad. And you would think those two are like the better players right now, aren't they?
They are, but I think he's a bit right in his opinion as well, because you need to get the most output out of these two players, because I think even he realizes that when it comes to creative players in that attacking dynamic, it's only Bruno and Ahmad who've got that creative mind space. Garnacho doesn't have it, and neither does Rashford or Anthony. So the only options that you've got left with are Bruno and Ahmad, who actually can create for the striker. And once these guys are able to, I think once Bruno and Ahmad are able to form that relationship, I think we'll be a much, much better team, because these guys know when to, look for the pass, when to go for the goal. And Ahmad as well, with his dribbling around the box, he can cause a lot of problems once he is played as an advanced 10.
Yeah, I think the point he's pushing is about teams being involved in it. Like, you need goals from everyone, because if you go through the team now, I think Garnacho is still our top goal scorer involvement.
Yeah,
I mean, Ahmad might be
Garnacho's
pushing up there slightly because he got one against Brighton, one against Southampton, I think, or at least a couple of assists as well. And then he got a couple against Pauk and then an assist against Ipswich. So he'll be pushing up there. But whichever way you look at it, there isn't a single player in the attacking forward line, whether it's Højlund, Xerxes, who are over like 4 or 5 goals, which is crazy in the league alone, which is absolutely madness for Man United. I remember, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I was looking this up the other day, who was our substitute striker in the 99 season. I think he got like 15 goals off the bench, or 15 plus goals. That's a sub striker. You had like Andy Cole scoring 30 plus. So I know that was a different time, and you had your 4-4-2s then, and you had 2 strikers. But that's why there is a dependence now, Shreyas, on wingers, on inside forwards, putting up those numbers, isn't there?
Yeah, I think the meaning of that sort of a striker has lost all its meaning in modern football.
Yeah.
Like, if you have to compare it to the traditional generation or older generation, now if you look at the strikers that are at your disposal, I don't find anyone who can, who comes up and I go, this is someone to be scared about. It's the wingers that I'm most scared about. Even if you look at, like, like some Madrid, Vinicius is there, Rodrigo is there, and Mbappe is there, but all of them are actually wingers. And they are very scary to look at. Right now, even in the Prem, I look at the wing, strikers at disposal, but barring Haaland, none of them actually come off as that, fearsome number 9.
Yeah. Spot on. On Amorim's system, Bruno has gone back to him. He says, does he think it'll benefit the younger players more? He's saying, I don't think age should be a problem, either older or younger. It's about carrying the most you can from the dynamics. As the manager has said, you do not need to overthink things. You just need to know you have a base and a foundation. But I can't help feeling some of the problems on the weekend did stem from the older players. So Johnny Evans, for example, in the left centre-back role, Casemiro and Eriksen in the midfield looked a little bit leggy, couldn't quite cover the space that he needed, that maybe a Mainu and Ugarte could. And the younger players, they're easier to mould, aren't they? That's the difference.
They are, but I think when you look at Casemiro and Eriksen as well, I think being leggy was definitely there, but another part was being positionally, well aware at times, playing as those 2 8s, I would say, in that system. I think they were positionally a bit off, which is why, not being able to cover as much ground became as much of a problem. I think once they genuinely get more adapted to the system, once they are more polished in this formation as well, I think it will be a lot better. And I think when you look at that midfield line with Eriksen and Casemiro, having those sort of wingbacks who can maintain the width of the game, like Ahmad maintained the width perfectly throughout the course of the game. Dalot was not able to do that job. So, you need to maintain that width for these 2 8s to actually function quite well. Because even if one of them goes off, that side becomes extremely vulnerable. So I do get that, Ugarte and Mainu might be better when it comes to covering as much ground. But I think even if you put Ugarte in alongside Casemiro, I think that it can still work just as well.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what Amorim's got cooking up and how he's going to address these issues that we're talking about. Just whilst we're waiting for a couple more quotes to come through, I think there's a few more. We might as well discuss European football. Now, there's a big thing going on in European football. It happened last night. I can't quite put my finger on it. It was something to do with another team in Manchester. And they had gone 3-0 up, I believe. This is what Word on the Street says. They went 3-0 up against a Dutch team. I can't remember the name of the Dutch team, and the
struggling Dutch team, I would say.
A struggling Dutch team, I would also say as well. I think that's probably a correct terminology. And they absolutely, within 15 minutes after being 3-0 up from 75 the 75th minute mark, bottled it. What do you think about that, Shreyas? And people are looking at me now thinking, oh, you've got scratches on your nose. You've got finger. This is, if anyone's seen the little shot that I did this morning, just a little nudge on Pep. It's not real, it's pen marker, but it actually feels quite sore now because I've done like a pen. Anyway, Man City, Shreyas, what the fuck's going on with them?
Taking a page out of Ten Hag's playbook, I would say, when it comes
Absolutely.
to yeah. And
Yeah.
look, he bottled 2-0 leads. They did they did it with 3-0. So they're much more advanced in this direction. And this is the first time I'll go and say it's the best time to actually play City right now.
Yeah.
It genuinely is, because on the pitch they are very disconnected, and the moment things don't start flowing their way, they absolutely tear apart. And there are a lot of big question marks throughout their team. For the first time, I'll say City have a lot of problems in their starting 11. You look at their defensive line. Guardiola does not work as a left back. The only reason I think he's extremely overrated as a fullback. I think as a centre back, he's much comfortable and better. But as a fullback, if the only threat he brings is goal scoring, and when you look at your profile as a fullback and what you want from a fullback, he does not actually tick mark all the check boxes. And you can see it in a lot of games. You can see it in the game against they had against Tottenham as well. Kulusevski and Brennan Johnson, every single one of them had a field day against him. You look at the other direction as well. Kyle Walker is not the same player anymore. He's lost a big yard of pace, and he's not able to track his runners. You move into the midfield line as well. Their midfield is absolutely terrible at the moment. When with the way they actually play, they get overrun in every single game. And I'm not sure. I don't know whether City are a one-man team, because since Rodri's been out, they look like a shadow of themselves. But they just don't look as well. I mean, Gundogan is definitely there. De Bruyne is still coming around, and you've also got the likes of other players like Matheus Nunes and a lot of other players who can, fill into those departments. Bernardo Silva being one of them as well, but they're just not being able to click. And in the attacking line, Haaland has, take the last game out in the Champions League. He's been having a goal drought.
Yep.
You look at their wingers as well. Phil Foden has not been able to hit those marks which he was able to hit last season. Doku has been very inconsistent. And Savinho has had very good bits, but just not being able to, compensate his glimpses with the output. So there are a lot of big problems in that team at the moment.
The argument of Pep was trying to say, I've got players out and these guys missing and da. I was looking at the team yesterday. It's still worth like 500 million quid. You spent 90 million on Guardiola, 100 million on Jack Grealish. You've got Foden, Haaland in the team. You brought back one of your best players ever in Ilkay Gundogan, who, in my opinion, I don't think he looks as good as he did when he first left to Barcelona. I think he's fell off a little bit. And we was touching off camera how with Alvarez, how they just never ever replaced his goals and assists that he brought to the side. Foden's just not kicked on. I don't know what his output is this season, but it's no way near the level it was at. You've got Matheus Nunes, who's playing more frequently. He's a £50 million player, and he's had bits where he's done all right.
And he's actually being played off as a left winger.
Yeah,
the
majority of the time he has played on the left-hand side. I think yesterday he played more in the midfield, but you're right, he has been playing as like a left winger, which has been strange. And then even when you look at the bench, Kevin De Bruyne, Kyle Walker, Ruben Diaz, Savinho, like you got these players on there. I know you got a couple of youngsters on there as well, but it's absolute nonsense, the excuses that's coming out of there. You should still be competing. To not win in 6 games with that level of talent in your team, it's got to be question
marks. Especially against the teams you're coming up against as well. I mean, this team is good enough to actually take a win against a Feyenoord team who are not as strong at all. They've got a lot of players missing.
Yeah.
They are not as comfortable in the Eredivisie either. But to bottle a 3-0 lead, and in if you look at the other games that they played as well, 4-0 loss against Tottenham was a big loss for them. And now that you've got a team like Liverpool coming up with the kind of intensity they played with, when you look at their midfield line, you look at their attacking line, even if you look at their defense, they're not going to be an easy team to come up against. And City, I think they expected a bounce after Pep signing that one-year contract extension, but it just doesn't seem to be flowing in the right direction for them altogether. And I don't know how they'll come out of it. I don't know what the fix is, because I'm not sure even Pep actually knows what the problem really is in this team, because it's still this one, most of the same players, it is still, pretty much the same system that they're playing in with as well. So that's why he's scratching himself up every single game.
Yeah, that's correct. And as you can see on the screen, people who are watching right now, he's actually managed to scratch 115 on his head. I don't know how he's done it. It's pretty incredible, to be fair. But yeah, I mean, look, I acknowledge right now that we are absolutely shit United at the minute. We're 13th in the table and we're 14th in Europa League, whatever, right? But at least we admit it. At least we've come to grips with it, and we're like, right, we're building from this phase. These are supposed to be Pep's supposed to be, there's people talking about putting him above Ferguson, talking about him, he's going to do it again, 5 in a row, and da. And look, he's struggling at the minute.
I think when it comes to United, everyone actually knows, and the majority of the fan base accepts we are very inconsistent. We do have players, no doubt about it, but to bank on these players week in and week out, they're not as consistent. They're not as reliable either. And we have a lot of work to do. And I think a lot of people have also said that, even if we finish like a 5th or 6th this season, we'll take it and go on into next season and actually progress. So this is a completely different dynamic. When you look at City, and this has been said a lot of times as well, that City's reserve team can, go out and win the Premier League with the big boys resting. And it just hasn't been the case altogether this season. And I think barring Tottenham, they haven't really even played any big sides in their past 4 or 5 games. So now, now that the tough fixtures are actually rolling up on them, it's going to get even worse if they are not able to make a quick fix for it.
It's not like they've, like you say, it's not like they've played Liverpool and Arsenal and Madrid in the Champions League.
Yeah.
Like, you've been beat off Bournemouth, you've been beat off Brighton, you've been beat off Tottenham twice. Tottenham have been here or there, like they've lost to Palace and they've lost other teams. They've been proper up and down. But to concede 4, I think they've conceded 13 goals in total whilst doing that. 4 against Tottenham. It's madness. It's madness. And I think...
Not to forget 4 against Sporting.
Yeah, 4 against Sporting as well. Obviously 3 against Feyenoord last night, which was crazy. The ugly side to this and the bad side is that it means probably that Liverpool are going to go and win the league, which is shit, and then you'll never hear the end of it from that fan base. So you can't really win, to be honest with you. But for City fans who were giving me stick in the messages and stuff, you're telling me you wouldn't enjoy this? You've not been enjoying United's downfall for the past couple of years. You know what I mean? They've been sat there with the fucking picnic baskets and the sandwiches and everything, just watching this downfall of United, enjoying every moment. I mean, there was at Old Trafford singing Ten Hag is rolling down. Old Trafford's falling down, sorry. Ten Hag is a clown and all this stuff. So you're damn right I'm going to sit here and see Pep stressing out after a game, scratching himself to death, moaning about certain players and fixtures and losing games. You're damn right I enjoy it 1,000,000%. I'm a United fan. That's what we're supposed to do. Football's tribal, right?
Yeah, and I take immense joy in the fact that, 2 things. When they won the treble, they were more focused on actually explaining why their treble is better than ours. Yeah. Which in itself is a big win for me, that even when you've won something, you're just trying to prove a point that are you better or not?
Yeah.
And secondly, that treble, the post they put up after winning the treble has not got anywhere near to the interaction that we got just while we announced Mason Mount as our new number 7. So it's completely, the levels are completely different. And I think City are still a club who fight a lot to make their case that they're a very, very big and very, very big institution of football, but it just isn't the case.
They're irrelevant. Random guy saying Gvardiol's poor defensive play. Pep might be the only manager to survive the sack after losing 5 in 6.
Imagine this was Ten Hag.
Yeah, of course.
6 games with the same fixture list and same results. Imagine this was Ten Hag.
Yeah, you're right. There isn't any hunger in the team anymore. He's saying, I think we're going to sell Rashi this January. I don't see it January. Personally.
I don't see it happening.
I think in the summer, if anything, but even then, I don't think they'll get rid of it. I just feel like Marcus Rashford is going to be at Manchester United for the rest of his life. It feels like. Honestly, I'm not even joking. I just feel like he's going to be here forever.
Know. You genuinely never know with Ineos. They might be. I mean, they've come out and said they're willing to take their losses on any player possible if the decision can make the team better. So I don't think anyone is safe, barring a couple of players. I don't think anyone's safe in this 11.
No, I think you're correct. For anyone who is just joining, we have covered the majority of the press conference. We've given updates on Lenny Yoro, Lisandro Martinez, and Harry Maguire. We've had a couple of comments from Bruno Fernandes on the system and how players will integrate into it. We spoke about the Ed Sheeran crashing of the interview, and Ruben Amorim basically saying you're making it more than what it is. Roy Keane's the actual star, which I absolutely loved that answer. He spoke about the lack of goal-scoring threat and how everyone has to chip in as a collective, what Marcus Rashford's best position is. A load of stuff, a load of diamonds in there. So, yeah, I appreciate you joining us if you are watching this live or watching this later on. We will be back tonight around 7 o'clock. I've got an interesting idea that I want to do, so keep an eye out for that. Tap the notification bell on YouTube so you don't miss the actual show. We're going to bring back something interactive, I think. And then obviously we've got the game tomorrow, which will be live for pre-match and post-match, as well as your afternoon show. So please do, yeah, leave a like on the video for us. We're on 8,513 subscribers, getting closer and closer and closer and closer to 10K. So can't wait till we hit that number.
Yeah.
It's going to be amazing. And thank you, Shreyas, for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.